While League of Legends doesn't have any summits of sub rotation like you see in Pokemon or other competitive scenes, the closest it gets to that point would be found in bot lane. Because of the insular nature of the role in regards to class choice being monopolized primarily by marksmen ever since the role came out, it features the lowest champion diversity of any role at less than 30 total picks give or take. Oftentimes you'll find a selection of marksmen, roughly around 3 to 4, that dominate the meta at any given point in time. Throughout the span of a month or so you might have Ashe, Twitch, Ezreal, and Tristana at the forefront. Another time you might have Zeri, Jhin, Vars, and Miss Fortune, so on and so forth. That said, it's easy for a number of marksmen to be noticeably popular even at times where they're less than strong, such as Ezreal and Kai'Sa, two of the most consistently popular AD carries of all time. One other marksman you'll frequently see more often than her peers is Jinx, whose gameplay closely matches her description of being a loose cannon. Despite being unanimously considered as a hyper carry, she manages to steadily find gainful employment in the meta, routinely reaching upwards of 10% in popularity, but often capping close to 20%, while at the same time having an excellent win rate track record of around 51% and a relatively low ban rate compared to the likes of Draven. Moreover, the story of Jinx takes us beyond the confines of League of Legends, making her a very special case. So for this episode of Why Everyone Plays, we'll be discussing all the factors that led to Jinx being as popular as she is. Though she was always a relevant pick due to a straightforward yet effective playstyle, Jinx has received no shortage of front page attention thanks to her involvement in Arcane. And with the second season now in sight, I figured this was a good time for me to make a video on her since I actually never talked about her despite how popular she is. League doesn't place anywhere near as much stock in character appeal as other games do, specifically anime ones. All the same, the concept of waifu over meta does technically exist. For the uninitiated, waifu over meta is a term often used in gacha games where players prioritize their favorite characters even if they're not necessarily strong. Obviously, gacha games are mostly non-competitive, and so you have the freedom to pick whoever you want regardless of how efficient they are. In a competitive environment such as League though, meta carries a lot more influence, and so you don't really find players fervently sticking to one champion out of loyalty or appeal. Though having said that, many champions do garner popularity partly from being cute or badass looking. Ahri's popular because she's pretty. Yasuo's popular because he's the cool, brooding swordsman type. Ezreal is popular because insert generic blonde high school boy. Initially, Jinx was marketed to us as your garden variety crazy girl who likes to blow things up, so people didn't really think much of her beyond that. Arcane, however, went to great lengths to flesh her out as a character, adding very much needed context to why her mental state is the way it is and the meaning behind her abilities and gameplay. The sort of crazy yet genius improvisation behind her weaponry and whatnot gives players a way to resonate with the character, as opposed to a more one-dimensional champion like Kog'Maw, who for all intents and purposes has no backstory other than vomiting all over people. It's no coincidence that Vi, Chase, Victor, and Jinx all shot up in popularity following Arcane's release, and in the case of Jinx, her popularity has persevered the longest because she was easily the most prominent of the four characters. Past the scope of narrative significance, Jinx has also received a fair bit of changes to her over the years that made her feel much more satisfying to play when things did go her way, and that also contributes to her overall strength and effectiveness right now. From all the way back in 2018 during version 8.2, Jinx received the first of many excellent quality of life buffs to help her keep pace with the growing strength and capacity of the competition, starting with Get Excited, removing her attack speed cap for 6 seconds. Back when Lethal Tempo came out in 7.22, it gave all champions the potential to break past the 2.5 attack speed cap. It was easily one of the biggest power creep additions in the history of the game, and I'm sure many people celebrated when it got removed earlier this year. Naturally, with Jinx's ramping strength occurring after scoring kills, this is a nice buff to have as it can help her deal even more damage in extreme circumstances. The second major quality of life buff was in the first patch of Season 9, wherein Zap's cast time corresponded to her attack speed so that it wouldn't be as disruptive to her attack tempo when casting, especially now that you could easily reach 3.0 attack speed or higher. Then in patch 10.2, her passive would trigger upon epic monster clears like Baron and Dragon, a very much needed buff as it would give her the speed boost needed to either run away to safety or to prime herself for the imminent shootout against the enemy team collapsing on her. She already would acquire Get Excited from taking down enemy structures, but this effectively rounded out her passive to trigger in more scenarios beyond just scoring takedowns. Lastly, in 13.20, they gave her the ability to stack the bonus attack speed upon takedowns, enabling her to get stronger and stronger and stronger with every kill. These changes were not just a welcome addition to her overall experience, but they were crucial in allowing her to keep up with the growing pace of the game's tempo, both in terms of champion uptime and the faster speed of the game as a whole. The primary source of Jinx's popularity is just that, tempo. Contrary to other hyper carries who are either gassed out or are kept in check by some kind of limitation, the damage output housed within Jinx is beyond extraordinary, giving her possibly one of the best advantage states out of the entire roster. With the absence of an attack speed cap and a mountain of attack speed buffs nested within her passive and minigun, Jinx can easily spiral out of control and destroy everyone with even the slightest inch. One of the reasons Draven is so feared is that he too has a terrifying advantage state courtesy of always having increased movement speed through Blood Rush. Get Excited is, for all intents and purposes, a more extreme Blood Rush that can push even farther, coupled with the fact that she can deal AoE damage through Fishbones and she has the tempo and destructive force to clear out entire squads. This of course is not exclusive to just her. All hyper carries, if given the opportunity, can shred through anyone and everyone they come across, but there's usually a brief moment of time for the enemy team to shut them down. For example, when assimilating an enemy champion, Waitngo cannot recast his ultimate for a couple seconds, thus keeping him locked to whatever champion he turns into for better or worse. Through continuous usage of Riftwalk, Kassadin will eventually exhaust all his mana. Samira's advantage state is also among the most terrifying in the game, but while she does reset Wild Rush, she has to build up Inferno Trigger all over again, giving you at least a couple seconds to kill her before she gets that chance. Master Yi, same thing. Highlander's reset only refunds about 3/4 of his cooldowns, forcing him to still wait a bit before he can Alpha Strike again. Jinx, on the other hand, is not barred from this whatsoever. Since her pressure almost entirely hinges on auto attacks, as soon as she takes down one champion, she doesn't just reset and continue her assault onto the next, she actively gets stronger and will continue to press onwards. There's no downtime in her kit whatsoever. The absurd movement speed boost afforded to her can make her extremely hard to catch if you don't slow or lock her down beforehand, and she can either make use of the speed to reposition if she's under attack or continue on the offensive. Adding on to that, unlike other marksmen who rely on momentary spikes of power, Jinx never runs out of gas. Pow Pow continuously gives her attack speed so long as she doesn't stop attacking, making her the only marksman in the game with a buff like this in her default kit. Zeri's ultimate Lightning Crash emulates a similar effect, but I'm speaking purely from a base kit perspective. I suppose you can make a case that Ezreal's Rising Spell Force is the same as Switcheroo in concept, but Ezreal's attack tempo is kept in check by being a spellcaster, not an auto-attacker. Several marksmen have attack speed steroids providing overwhelming spikes in pressure, but all of them have downtimes in between. Kog'Maw, Kai'Sa, Xayah, Sivir, Twitch, Draven, Misfortune, Tristana, Ashe, so on and so forth. Jinx is the only one who never runs out of gas, assuming she's attacking something, and it's very easy to do so when you're playing a ranged champion versus say Jax, who can get kited and lose stacks of his passive very often. So by level 9, Jinx can maintain a 130% bonus attack speed buff indefinitely. The marksman class is known for consistent DPS. Jinx basically has the threat capacity of a hyper carry with the consistency of a marksman. Combined with the changes they've given her over the years, and she can reach that power spike more consistently while at the same time gaining more mileage out of it. You can obtain her Super Saiyan mode by killing a tower then turning onto a fight, or by killing Dragon or Baron. She can snowball insanely hard in both micro and macro scenarios. The second cause of Jinx's popularity, and what further distinguishes her from other hyper carries, is that of safety, which enables her to be more consistent than her peers. For her type of playstyle, Jinx is unreasonably safe. Hyper carries are known for being high risk, high reward, a characteristic that no doubt is associated with Jinx as well. But for example, if we look at Kai'Sa and Vayne, what keeps her extreme single target DPS and combat mobility in check is their short attack range. They have to almost get into melee range to apply pressure, making them especially vulnerable to 2v1s. They can also struggle against enemies with a strong neutral game. It's easy for their pressure to fall off a cliff if they lose half their HP just by walking up. Jinx, on the other hand, can play much further back. Zap is a long cooldown, long range, fairly safe poke tool with decent damage, allowing her to poke enemies from afar if and when she's not in a favorable position to attack. At max rank, Fishbones augments her attack range to 725, which I believe is the highest sustainable attack range in the game. Other attack range boosters like Twitch's Spray and Pray are not always present. 725 range is far enough to where most champions cannot dash onto her, given conventional gap closes are usually 600 to 650. All that's to say, Jinx can apply her pressure while staying a significant distance away from her opponent, placing the onus on them to walk up to her, which can be especially difficult on account of her bonus movement speed, making her faster than even the likes of Hecarim with Ghost, albeit for a brief moment. Why this matters is that Jinx not only has a safe margin for applying pressure, but also a safe margin for obtaining her power spike. For most other hybrid carries or reset mechanics, they have to put themselves in a highly vulnerable position before they can do so, or at least vulnerable in relation to Jinx. For example, if Bel'Veth wants to get her empowered form and explode everyone with true damage, she has to first score that initial takedown. And for her to score that initial takedown, she has to walk up to attack someone, giving the enemy team a chance to shut her down before doing so. Other champs like Samira have to do the same. For her to quickly prime Inferno Trigger, she has to wild rush onto the enemy team and also expend Blade Whirl, likely putting her in a highly dangerous position under the expectation that she can kill her targets first before they kill her. In almost every case, the hyper carry has to expose themselves first if they want to go into snowball mode. Jinx doesn't. If the situation calls for it, she can either give someone a quick tap with her W or execute someone from afar with their ultimate, granting her two very safe ways to try and get excited before she then goes crazy on the enemy team, which you can then preserve by taking advantage of her long-reaching rockets. Sometimes you might score a kill with Bel'Veth, Master Yi, or Viego, but you're so injured you explode shortly after, not being able to take advantage of your snowball. Jinx might be one of the few snowball mechanic champions who doesn't have to put any skin in the game to get reward out of it. If she shows up late to a fight, she can just throw out a super mega death rocket on a low health enemy and use a speed boost to get herself into the fight. Just the sheer fact that she has a 1500 range missile and a global ultimate to snipe off enemies, or at the very least tag them for an assist, makes acquiring Get Excited very easy. On top of her being able to proc off structures and epic monsters, Jinx is also one of the only hyper carries in the game with area control. Ever since they made it so Flame Chompers can interrupt dashes in 7.23, Jinx's E went from an inferior version of Caitlyn's traps to one of the best walling tools in the game. When used correctly, Jinx has a modicum of self-peel against divers and assassins. It has no cast time, meaning she can use it while running, and it has a cast range of 925. She can throw them down pretty far. You can set them down preemptively to control space, or use it while running away to zone off pursuers. Mind you, it's not foolproof. If a Jax lands on top of you, the chance of survival drops to near zero. But once more, compared to the likes of Zeri, Kai'Sa, Kog'Maw and such who don't have any crowd control at all, this matters a lot more than you think. The final thing I want to point out is that Jinx's good representation and results also stem from having an alignment of interest. What makes hyper carries ironically bad at carrying games is how selfish they are. Though they offer significant damage, that's all they bring to the table, and if you're playing a hyper carry top, jungle, or mid laner, you pay a huge opportunity cost. Say you want to play Master Yi jungle. If you pick Master Yi, you lose out on the gank pressure of a Rek'Sai, Jarvan, Shaco, and Elise. You lose out on the engage and teamfight strength of a Nunu, Fiddlesticks, Amumu, and Zac. You get what I mean, right? You're giving up a potential asset in a different field for the chance to potentially 1v9 games. Most teams will feel more secure having a more balanced jungler like Volibear, Hecarim, and Jarvan than a full damage Master Yi who offers no engage potential, no neutral game, no peel, no frontline, nothing. Same goes for Kassadin. Having a level 16 Kassadin is nice to have, but sometimes the cover fire of Xerath, the point and click stun, and roaming potential of a Twisted Fate, the area control of a Hui, even the wind wall on Yasuo can be of greater benefit to your team than any amount of DPS Kassadin offers. The one exception to this is the bot lane role. AD carries were always meant to be walking ordnance. That was their original premise dating all the way back to the inception of the 5 roles. If there's any lane where having a hyper carry would be most appropriate, it would be bot lane. By playing Jinx, you're checking off boxes that you were going to check off anyway. Sure, you could argue that sometimes you want the utility of Ashe, the poke damage of Ezreal, the neutral game of Caitlyn, or the long-range pick potential of Jhin. But my point is, compared to other hyper carries, Jinx pays the lowest opportunity cost to be played because the role most likely to field a DPS junkie would be bot lane. And when accounting for all the other factors like how safe she is and how extreme her pressure can get, it makes her feel like a hyper carry without the usual detrimental aspects of being one. It's also easy to balance Jinx. Outside of Flame Chompers and the boost of speed on Get Excited, she's as punishable as they come. Not many people find Jinx to be all that ban-worthy for the simple reason that she's fair. Sure, when she pentakills her team it feels like the most broken thing in the game, but hardly anyone considers her to be oppressive. By consequence, her ban rate stays fairly low, thus allowing players to pick her often. She's just a good champion who feels good to play while not feeling terrible to play against. And ever since Arcane expanded on her character, she's decidedly one of League's most popular champions both in and out of the game. Really excited to watch Arcane Season 2 after the brutal cliffhanger they left us on after Season 1. Hope you guys enjoyed the video though. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on Jinx in the comments down below. But for now, if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other Why Everyone Plays videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.